Hi! Whether you're a button mash hack and slash controller bash, or a meeple moving mastermind of maps, mats, and minis, if you ruffle at the awful ruffle shuffle scuffle, or if you're a click clack pick attack number ball luck sack, we're all here for the same reason. I'm Jake. Let's talk games. Hi, today I want to talk about the Rubik's Cube. It's one of my favorite puzzles, but I think it's a little bit more than that. My bold claim of the day is that the Rubik's Cube is actually a roguelike game. A roguelike game is a genre of video games that are generally hallmarked by the fact that you have multiple levels that you play through, and all of those levels are procedurally generated. That means every time you boot up the game, it makes a whole new dungeon or map for you to explore. Secondly, roguelike games generally have an element of permadeath. This means if you die in the game, you go back to square one. There are no checkpoints, no saves. You play through the game, and when you reach a failure state, you go back to square one. A Rubik's Cube works the same way. When you pick up a Rubik's Cube to solve it, it is in a random configuration. There's over 1 billion combinations of pieces on the Rubik's Cube, so each time you solve it, you're effectively playing a whole new board. Brand new game, starting from square one. Second, generally when people first learn how to solve a Rubik's Cube, you work layer by layer, starting with the first layer, and then the second layer, and then the third. These kind of act like levels, and depending on how you beat level 1, it'll change the way that you approach level 2. As you become more advanced in solving a Rubik's Cube, you might take different approaches, where you solve part of level 1, and then you combine the remainder of level 1 into level 2, and solve those two at the same time. Or maybe you bypass this entirely, and you do part of level 1, part of level 2, and part of level 3, and then you solve the remaining pieces of all three at the same time. All of those different approaches you will also find in a lot of speedrunning video games. So I think they have a lot in common. What I'd like to do is put together an instructional video on how to approach the Rubik's Cube as a roguelike game. I think it might help some of us less familiar with puzzles and more familiar with games approach things in a new way. Look at the Rubik's Cube as a front-loaded, random, roguelike, level-by-level dungeon explorer. So if you're interested in learning how to solve the Rubik's Cube, come on by. I'm going to start from the very basics. The construction of the cube, and how to begin to solve the first phase. And from that point, it's going to work a little like a choose-your-own-adventure game. Because depending on how you solve the first level, you may have to solve the second level in a different way. And as we progress through, I'd like you to have the option of how you want to approach it. What approach works best for you? Maybe you're the kind of person that prefers to memorize a number of moves, recognize that specific configuration on the cube, and blow through it. If you're trying to get fast at the cube, this is probably the best approach to get you started. The second takes a more holistic approach, trying to recognize the relative position of multiple facets on the cube, and then make decisions based on that to build the cube in kind of a block way, where if you imagine one corner spreading out over the cube and slowly solving the rest. The benefit of this is that you don't have to re-scramble a lot of the things that you've already solved. The drawback is that it involves more looking at the cube, or memorizing where everything is on the cube. And that can be difficult and time-consuming. So maybe better as a puzzle, but worse as a speedrun, to use a relevant term. Finally, I wanted to go back to one aspect of roguelike games that I think is so beautifully captured in this little puzzle, and that is the element of permadeath. If you start to solve something in the second or third layer, and you get it wrong. You do an algorithm incorrectly, you turn it left when it should have gone right. Chances are you're going to scramble the cube beyond, what you can recover from immediately. And for all intents and purposes, the cube is in a different random starting configuration. And you're basically starting over. It might be easier the second time, because portions of it might already be solved, but that might not always be useful. It might not be solved in a way that helps you complete the rest of the cube. And I just love that. A Rubik's Cube has infinite replay value. I like to carry one with me pretty much wherever I go. It's something that I can play that doesn't require batteries, doesn't require an outlet, doesn't require an internet connection. I can sit and play my roguelike game as long as there's light. And I love that. This is one of my favorite games by far.